from the point of view of Buddhism or mindfulness, there's a goal. There's something that we're trying to get. And that makes sense from a certain perspective, because the mind and the body need to get stuff. Like the mind and the body both live to have certain needs and certain progressions of growth, learning, healing. So there's sort of like spirituality that overlays the way the mind and the body work, and cohere with that or use that. You get this part, you practice it. You get this part, you practice it. The same way that you would learn any other skill. But the paradox of that is that the eventual outcome of that is that with spirituality is that we see through that. We see it to be inherently empty. Not empty like without value, but empty like non-existent. Like it just isn't. That the thing that we were trying to develop or make better isn't. You know, we have that expression, working on ourself. Like, has anybody here ever done any work on yourself? Right? Like, but so we're working on this self, but if it becomes in the spiritual realm, the eventual outcome of that is that we see that there is no self. So it's like, how does that end up? Because most things that we work on, we work on them because they become something that we can depend on. You know, like if you're trying to strengthen your body or trying to strengthen your mind, then that happens, and then you can depend on that. That's something that you can go back to, that you say, oh, I learned this skill, or I created this level of healing or this level of maturity in myself, and then I can rely on that. But the self that we're working on a spiritual level ends up like it's not there. So from a perspective of or from the understanding, the non-dual understanding is that we don't even try to work on ourselves. We don't. It's like we don't go there. We don't make this a project. We don't have a goal. We're not trying to get somewhere, someday, somehow. Which is the way that the mind approaches everything else. So the mind actually doesn't, the mind never fully understands this. This isn't something that the mind can understand. It can, at best, it'll go along with it. Like it goes along with it enough so we're all here, right? Like somehow our mind said, okay, I'm going to go to this. Maybe your mind thinks that you're working on yourself or that you're going to get something. So, and to greater or lesser degrees, you might understand that that's sort of like a game or a joke, that you allow the mind to believe that so that it goes along with this. But somewhere in a deeper place, there may start to be the understanding that that's not going to happen, that isn't real, that there isn't anything to get. There's nothing ultimately to get, at least on the spiritual level. The spirituality isn't about getting anything or developing something or becoming something. Because what would get that? What would develop that? What would become that? What's the entity that would actually get something? Yeah, that's the ego or the mind wants that. So whenever we're coming from that place of wanting or getting, becoming, that's the ego or the mind or the small self. That's not really what's happening. But we can recognize it. It's easy to recognize. You know, when you sit down to meditate, which isn't even really meditation. We're basically just hanging out with what is. Meditation sounds like that sounds like why am I meditating? I mean, generally speaking, when I'm meditating, if you ask me, why are you meditating? I wouldn't have a good answer. It's like, I don't know, because that's what I do. You know, it's like the best answer I could give you is, well, that's what I'm doing. Or, because I do meditate. The only reason I do it is because I do it. Because if I start to meditate to get something, then I'm losing the reality of what is. Because I'm letting go of what is for what could be, or what I want, or what I think I want, or what I'm projecting it to some imagined future. So oftentimes when I start guiding, what comes up, I'll say something like, notice if there's some inclination inside of you to get something while you're meditating, like to create a certain kind of state, a certain kind of feeling, a certain kind of experience or result. And notice that, see it clearly, and let go of it. Does that sound familiar with, because I come to that place in myself of, is there any sense of that? I want to see through that. I don't want to be here because I'm trying to get that. Like, I want to quiet my mind so that whatever. I want to quiet my mind so that ... Or I want to feel a particular way so that ... Because the one thing that the mind finds it very hard to comprehend is like goallessness or purposelessness or agendalessness. The mind doesn't really know what to do with that, especially with how busy we tend to be. That all of a sudden when we stop being really busy, the mind will start to try to find things to be busy with. Even up here, it's like you walk around in some retreats, like people are like building stuff. It's like they're building stuff in the woods. They're piling up rocks and doing. I mean, if it's artistic expression to honor the land, that's okay. I can get that. That's cool. That's a way of being here. But sometimes I get the sense it's just like they just want something to do. And because it's just harder to be. It's just harder to be with what is. Like there's plenty of artistic, creative expression going on just in the way nature's operating, and just taking that in. But even for a moment to like see or experience beyond the mind's activity, which is always oriented to some outcome or some future, some task. And then what's not that has been called all kinds of things. God, awareness, emptiness, being, consciousness. Lots of different words that try to point to that. What is that? But none of those words imply any kind of a goal, any kind of a process of going from here to somewhere else. And so it's hard for the mind to even visualize that or get around that or see any value in that. So even, like something like, okay, I'm going to sit down and do this meditation that we call Direct Path. We're all of a sudden in a huge contradiction. Like, what are we going to do? Like our mind wants to create some kind of structure or form around it. And so there are pointers, but they're just pointers. They're not the thing itself. And at different times, for different situations, some of those pointers can be helpful. But they're only, remember like little kids' cartoons, and you'll get the character that like is running really fast, and then they go off a cliff. And then you can see them in the air, and their legs are whirling, and they're just suspended, and then they look down, and then they drop. Whether it's Bugs Bunny or whoever. It's a classic kind of cartoon thing. It's like we're trying to get ourselves to run off that cliff. That's what we're, it's like, can we get our mind to just run off the cliff where there's no ground? There's nothing. And then the mind will just frantically spin for a few seconds and go, oh, and then it'll drop. And in that moment of dropping, that's that moment of awareness or consciousness or presence or emptiness or God or whatever you want to call it. So, whatever we can get to get ourselves off the cliff. But if it becomes a formula and exercise, then we start to get all wrapped up in the formula or the exercise, and we never leave the ground. We've created almost like we've built a bridge off the end of that cliff, so we don't really have to suspend ourselves above space. Because all of a sudden now I have this practice. I have this belief system. I have this religion. I have this structure. And then the structure takes me out across this gap, this emptiness, this groundlessness. And so I can pretend to be suspended over the emptiness or the groundlessness, but I'm not really. I have this structure that I built, that I read about in a book, or some teacher taught me this structure, or, and they call it something ism, whatever the ism is. But that's not really it. Somehow we have to get off of that structure. So there's, in a way, we're trying to in a way we're trying to get past that, and it's paradoxical. It's paradoxical. But in each moment of sitting quietly with that, there's an opportunity to meet that paradox, not in an effortful way or in a directed way, but in letting go of that effort in that direction. And then we can meet that paradox. And we just meet it for moments. We just meet it for moments. And then you recognize it. And then the mind starts to go, oh, that was it. Yeah, how did I do that? Can I do that again? Has anybody ever right? It's because it happens in a way by accident. It happens by lack of understanding, by lack of putting together a formula or a sequence or some kind of cue. But then as soon as it happens, then we're looking for the formula, the sequence, the cue. Well, how do I make that happen again? So we need to recognize in our own minds that sort of graspingness, and then just let it go. Just keep letting it go. There's no formula. The formula is no formula. As soon as it becomes a formula, then that's like building a bridge over the gap. It's not even a gap because there's nothing on the other side. We're just trying to extend the cliff. We're just trying to get further. Oh, now I'm over the emptiness, but I've got my bridge to nowhere. But that isn't it. It's much easier to try to create a formula and package it and practice it, but that isn't the direct path. Because the direct path goes absolutely nowhere. That's the it's a path to nowhere. It's not a path from here to there. It's really incorrectly, it's kind of like the direct path. It sounds like it goes somewhere. From here to there. And then when I get there, then I can look back and go, oh, I'm here. I got here. It's the direct path to absolutely nowhere. It just takes us to where we are now. It's not a there. So who cares? Why is that even important or valuable? Why is it worth talking about? What's the point? The body wants comfort, physical comfort, right? The mind wants certainty. The mind wants answers. We want pleasant experience. We want to be happy. We want to feel safe. So we want all that. And it's really precarious to try to create that in any given moment, right? I mean, the sharing that happens in the circle every week, like how often is that balance achieved where in somebody's experience it's like it's all lining up and it's like, oh yeah, this is just so good right now. The mind, the body, the world, the context, the situation, the causes and conditions, it's all just right. Like, it doesn't happen that often. All you got to do is open up your perspective a little bit if you think that's happening, and then you open up your perspective a little bit wider and it's like, oh, this is a shit show. And you may not need to open it that wide at all. It may just be in your own immediate circumstance that it's not happening. So, that's the first noble truth, right? What's the first noble truth of Buddhism? Suffering. Yeah, right. Suffering, different translations of dukkha, unreliability, suffering, etc., etc. So, training, mindfulness or traditional Buddhism starts generally with training the mind to be less reactive, less clingy, so that there's less suffering, there's less reactivity, there's more equanimity with the unpleasant aspects of experience. But we're basically trying to train the mind and the heart to go in that direction. But the mind and the heart don't generally go in that direction. The mind wants what it wants. The heart wants what it wants. So this is like a long, hard process, right? It's difficult. It works. I think we've all seen results from that, but it works. But it's slow, it's hard. The direct path takes a different approach. It's based on a different understanding. It's saying, what is most true? What is most real? What am I, or who am I really? I'm not the mind, I'm not the body, I'm not the world. I'm just what knows that. I'm what knows the mind, I'm what knows the body, I'm what knows the world. I'm the core awareness or presence or consciousness or being at the heart of that. And that essential awareness or consciousness or being that's at the center is peace. It is open to whatever is and is undisturbed by whatever is. It is love. It doesn't feel love, it doesn't practice love, it doesn't have to learn love. It is. So we don't have to create anything. We are that already. But we're mesmerized or lost in the experience of what we're aware of. In other words, the mind, the body, and the world, perceptions, thoughts, feelings. And the more that we can connect, fall back to, relax into, become aware of our essential nature, who we are, then even if it's only for moments at a time, that peace, that love, that okayness, that equanimity starts to infuse our ordinary experience. Our ordinary experience then starts to arise within a field of that, rather than that becoming a goal of our ordinary experience. So from the point of view of the mind, we're bopping around in life in our ordinary experience, wanting to have some of that experience be part of our ordinary experience. Like, here's our ordinary experience. We want more of this peace or love or connection or okayness to kind of come in, to flavor it. When from this understanding, the truth of our experience is that. And then perception and feeling and thought are arising within it. So as we become more aware of consciousness, or more aware of awareness, or more aware of being, then all of this is starting to happen in a field of that. So it's kind of the opposite of what we think. It doesn't change the facts of our life. It doesn't change the facts of, your stress from your job, or the dukkha from family that many of you just shared, or whatever else. It doesn't change what's going on in the world. It doesn't change what he who shall not be named is doing or trying to do to our country and our planet. It doesn't change any of that. But our experience of it is totally different. So we become happier, less stressed, less reactive, more generous, kinder, wiser, without any effort. We're not becoming those things because we changed our mind or changed our bodies or changed the world. That's happening because we're in a different context. So it's not working on ourselves. Put down the pick and the shovel. Now that doesn't mean that the things that need to be worked on, you don't need to work on them. Because it doesn't change those things. So if there are aspects of your mind or your body or the world that need work, then that's the context that they still need that work to be done. This is different. This is a different realm. So amazingly, it's 9:20. So I guess we'll leave it there.